depends on really what you mean, but we can talk about it.
Yeah.
You guys can tell me my ideas suck.
That answer depends on what you mean is like a meme now, but it's a totally legitimate response.
All right, dudes, we are live again with the Pangburn Hangout. We're hanging out. Come hang out with us. Today it's Dal-tsu, wrestling with something. Does religion still have a place? Why, Dal-tsu? Why do you torture us with such questions?
Well, I figure the only way we can know that we've had this conversation is if we have it like every other week.
Perfect.
So, here we are.
I'm going to share my screen. Okay, yeah. Take her away. I'll do all my sharing and shit.
Well, I guess, we were talking about having Bruce go. Bruce,
we should also
what do you
say
think?
hi, just quickly, Dal. Sorry, I just want to say hi to Alpha Wolf 52. I believe you're new to the Discord here.
Yeah, that's my buddy.
Welcome.
Welcome to the pack.
Oh, welcome. I thought that was Nivik. Oh, yeah.
Where the fuck is Nivik, by the way? Get his ass in here.
Yeah, he's supposed to be disrupting this conversation already.
What the fuck? Hey, it's Jolie. I'm surprised Jolie hasn't said, hey, where's Nivek?
I'm a Marxist. Kangaroos and shit.
God damn it. God damn it.
Caricatures of people here.
Somebody do me.
Somebody, make sure you like the YouTube video and, click the.
All you have to do an impression of me is to be annoying. It's very simple.
I don't know
or self-deprecating, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah. You caught me.
Yeah. So, Bruce, what do you think the role of religion is today?
It kind of depends on what we're saying, I guess. The religion seems to have a connotation of I don't know, blind faith, whatever. So the thing I would say is I think many people have religion and are using religion all the time. If we're saying this, unless you obviously mean belief in a system that doesn't exist in reality, it sounds like typically when people throw epithets at people and say religion is a problem, that's what they mean. Although I think many people act religious regardless. They just decide to admit their presuppositions and biases or not. But as far as systematic system of discussing the teachings of the creator, that would be a requirement in my opinion. Religion will continue, but as far as man-centered versions of God, without a standard, or at least without systematic theology that defines it, I would say it has no place. But that's been the case since the beginning of time. So in other words, I think it always has a place because I don't know that you're ever going to get rid of that. Religion is just the highest order of people's axioms and how they operate legalistically according to them, regardless of their experiences. There are things people do that they have traditions, and I don't think anyone can tell you they don't have traditions. If they tell you they don't have traditions, they probably have the most traditions. So that's my answer to that.
I mean, I think I would largely agree. I tend to be in the camp that most people are religious even if they don't know it. And I tend to define religion based around tradition rather than, I don't know, a non-functional system or a non-correct system or something like that.
I mean, if we define it broadly as faith and belief in something that you can't really see or prove, then yeah, pretty much everyone's religious, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the definition is superhuman controlling power, personal God or gods, but then also like an interest to which someone ascribes the supreme importance is a secondary definition, or a system of faith and worship. And I think that like whatever becomes the highest order of a person's belief system, then that is their religion.
Fair
So in
enough.
others, like if someone appeals to the law of the land, the state's laws, well, if that's the highest order of law, then that's their religion, and that is their theocracy, and the theocracy, quote unquote, is the top level that cannot be higher.
Worship of the state, a classic.
Well, it's not necessarily worship, because you don't worship their religion either. You know what I mean? That's a problem. So like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know.
yeah, you don't worship the institution, but it is your highest order.
But people worship their politicians.
Oh yeah.
But
I was
Depends
the
on how you define it. But I mean, you could say yes, people do that, but I don't know.
but the law of the state can be improved and can be changed. And
No, that's
many
debatable,
religions.
actually.
What do you mean?
Well, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, I was just going to say many religions today are showing huge resistance to changing their major tenets and major doctrines and their dogmas.
I think that's kind of their business as long as it doesn't negatively affect anybody else. You know what I mean?
Well, and the other thing is there's a standard by which people should be measuring their what you would consider to be a dogma, I suppose. There's a common standard of belief that people agree upon, and then that's how they derive their doctrine based on a standard. With something like the state, the standard is whatever the wind blows the people to be.
Right. For example, we can vote on something.
Yes,
we can change the law.
And all those people can be manipulated by the wind, media, marketing, themselves, quality individuals, the same way that you could argue the church is manipulated. If you look at charismatic, non-biblical prosperity gospel, they are swaying people in the same way that politicians who are largely appealing to identity politics with very good marketing campaigns and empty promises, it's the same. It's the same situation.
Yeah, but religions also do change themselves, but not necessarily the way that laws get changed by the people that are writing laws. But think it's more of a long term, what I would call a genetic algorithm for optimizing their moral belief system or their structure or their hierarchy. You can see throughout history. Just look at the Abrahamic religions. It all started with something way prehistorical, and then Judaism, and then that and it branched off into Judaism in like 5 different forms, and Christianity in thousands of different forms.
Yeah,
And
this is doctrine you're talking about, and doctrine
right, but the religion changes over time. They'll change a little part of it, and the person who's preaching to change that little part of it will get more and more followers, and those followers will either do well and recruit more people, or they'll die off.
I see no distinction between that and politics, is like I was saying earlier.
Right, but what I'm saying is the process by which religion changes is, it's over generations, and
Talking
it's,
about consciousness
through the course of, branching off a new sect, and then that sect either survives and grows or it doesn't. Politics, the same sect can a lot more easily change itself and change its own policies. But like for the Catholic Church to reverse what it means to be a Catholic would take a lot. It would take a lot more than for Congress to pass a law that says you have to wear masks or something like that.
Yeah, it seems to be more rapid moving in politics today. It used to be a lot slower. But I think I kind of see what you're saying. I don't necessarily think there's much of a distinction between them sometimes, if any at all. It's just like you said, the way how rapidly it moves. Because doctrine is harder to move. But I think they are very much the same actions.
Yeah, I think the similarity there lies in the following the symbol. Like a lot of Democrats or Republicans will follow that that color, that D, that R, just wherever it goes, despite what anyone says, because it's they're essentially following the cross in a way. They're so hard to convince they won't be convinced. And so I
Well,
see
I
the
would argue
similarity, but
they would follow wherever their base goes, rather than where their values go.
Yeah, their standard isn't
politicians.
grounded in anything other than what changes in the moment.
Yeah.
And regardless of evidence, by the way, I would agree. I would say. So even the evidence-based argument against Christianity, I would, or anyone, I'd say, the same thing's happening in politics. It's how you feel, your identity, equaling scales regardless of statistics and outcomes, etc.
are we thinking that religion is going to merge somewhat with politics somehow, or?
Well, I think it did at one point, that it diverted or it tried to. I don't think it ever actually did. And then it comes back in. But I mean, technically your faith will determine, in most people's cases, if not all people's cases, their moral worldview which dictates their political stances.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also part of the, like a Republican might gain votes by having an image as being a Christian or respecting Judeo-Christian values, as they like to say. So it's already part of the image. I mean, it's supposed to be separate, obviously, but it still influences how people think in politics.
That's for certain.
Yeah.
I mean, it says a lot about their worldview typically, although it doesn't really, to be honest, it doesn't say a lot anymore. But at one point it did.
Yeah.
So if you're going to ask, is religion still have a place? Well, you're just going to rename it.
So
I would argue that it has a place even if you don't rename it. People have to decide how to act around each other and how to what's proper and what's improper activity. And somehow we have to pass around some superordinate principle or some meta rules in order for society to be coherent and not devolve into chaos, right? So religion does a really good job of giving people a set of principles that at least their culture that practices that religion can all adhere to, and so people can get along and be more productive as a group. If you don't, if you don't have superordinate principles like that, then it turns into bickering about, well, what's the right thing to do, right? And if you have a common set of core values, it's a lot easier for people to know what to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like there used to be sort of we have a common set of beliefs and we have different agreements on how we might achieve those things, or what we'd like to see things look like in the future. So people would shake hands and depart and say, okay, we're doing somewhat similar things. You go your direction, I'll go my direction. And so this is like what happened in a lot of Protestant denominations in the early days, in the First Great Awakening. People had differences, right? You're Presbyterians, you're Baptists. They said, okay, we both have the same goal. Basically, we have different agreement on doctrine. So this isn't an amicable departure. But we both have a standard by which we're measuring ourselves, and an outcome that's very much the same. That's I think the most ideal way, but that doesn't seem to be the situation with today's scenario.
Ultimately Oh, go ahead, Andy.
No, you can go.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, in today's climate, especially politically, I mean, you can see that we need something like religion, whether you can keep it called religion or called by something else, just because of the speed at which information is moved and the knowledge that everyone is gaining about other worldviews politically and religiously and spiritually cause so much division in people that everybody lives by so many different narratives now, where in the past we didn't have that issue. So yeah, I don't know. It's such a hard subject to talk
it's
about.
An interesting point, because like one of the things that's interesting is, have people always held such differing views across the globe that were diametrically opposed, or has there been enough disinformation today to sway people socially where they wouldn't necessarily hold these tenets belief, but they're looking for group identity regardless of their truly held beliefs and axioms?
Yeah. To point out a third option, I tend to think that there were always a wide amount of differing beliefs. It's just the ruling belief was, not generally pushed over unless it was overly oppressive or people were starving or something like that. Like you always had Epicureans and Christians and all of these different groups that were all kind of living together under Rome for back in its heyday anyway.
Right. There were people that actually fought, right?
Yeah.
But together, but they, and they definitely had their fighting. But this is an interesting thing. Like an atheist and a Christian today can sit next to each other, and one of them is insane. Like they think that they think the other person's insane, or vice versa. But they still have, agreements. They shake hands. They do all sorts of things together. They're friends. That doesn't seem to be the case in a lot of political discussions. And so, if you're going to talking about dogma, I mean, even there's even more, I guess, agree to disagree, or I guess, couth between religious folks than there is with political folks. And I have theories about that, but I just, to me, it seems like if religion is a worrisome dogma, well, we already have that without religion. That's called the state and politics.
Yeah, I do think the state is more adaptable, at least under a democracy or something like that.
I mean, I think it feels adaptable, but I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, there are people that argue over, whether or not the Oxford comma should be used in the way that it's used, and make all sorts of like heels in the sand and digging a flag and yelling at each other on Twitter over this. Like, I don't see unity easily in any of these situations.
Yeah, I would say that like the real world is definitely different than online. Something about
I would agree.
I think if religious wars in the sense that we're thinking happen in the future, and even if that is politics or different domain, like different theories of everything in science or whatever ends up becoming the future of religion, I think it will be like online mostly, the wars. I think people in real life will become just tamer and tamer as society goes on. At least it looks that way.
Yeah, I feel like we all have this, well, most people at least have a basic sort of moral instinct where some things are right, some things are wrong, like in the most basic sense. And this has changed throughout history to become more and more, like it's less and less okay generally to kill somebody, right? But long time ago, you could just kill somebody from being from a different tribe or something. And that still happens in places, but for most of the world, it's like there's this civilized code of conduct that we all generally follow. And if we break the rules, then, the powers that be will be like, don't do that, or there'll be like sanctions or something.
Mm-hmm. The powers that be is the more interesting thing there. Which power are we willing to submit to?
Well, you should never fully submit to an imperfect system.
But
And
isn't
that's
that what's being asked of individuals?
No.
So
Well, if
even
it is,
inside a democracy, you submit to the state. Oh, we have
if it is,
laws.
you shouldn't. If it is, you shouldn't.
Wear your mask. Submit. Get vaccinated. Stop being an idiot.
Well, technically, they can't force you to get a vaccine, right? And they can't force you
Recycle
to.
your aluminum
Yeah.
cans.
No, they don't have to force you to necessarily do that. Not yet. But there are some things that are forced. And is it a
Well, what are some
benevolent
of the things?
state? No.
Well,
Taxes.
no, not inherently, I guess, but
You're unable to freely associate and disassociate
you know.
without legal. Yeah, if I want to run a business, I can't disassociate with people on the basis of race. Not that I would
Oh,
want to, but I'm saying you can't do that.
well, okay.
You also cannot raise your children the way you want.
This is true. You have a number of you have a number of
I don't think that those kind of
impositions on the family
restrictions.
household. Some of them are well warranted, but once again, you're submitting to an imperfect
Okay, but
system.
what's the point though? If they're well warranted, what's your criticism?
Because some of them are not.
Well, like
Then
which ones?
we have to accept that, right?
And I'm not saying there aren't, but and we don't have to accept it. I mean, we could potentially get rid of laws. I mean, we live in a democracy, essentially.
I think we actually don't, to be fair, but
Well, we have democratic elections. I mean, we're a
some of
federal
them.
constitutional republic.
The
Or
FBI and the
some
CIA are not elected, by the way. Neither is the EPA.
Yeah, okay.
They're appointed by.
Yeah,
elected
there is
people.
the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, those guys should
None of
be
that's
probably. Well, I don't know. I'd be afraid to elect the Federal Reserve guys because we need math people in the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, the IPCC is not elected either.
Yeah. There's a number of things that aren't elected, and we've accepted that there's some level of representation somewhere, but our submission to that imperfect, unelected, like this idea that like it's better than religion because people have a say, I think is absolute rose-colored glasses and an otherwise disgusting setup that's a cesspool.
But it's not pure chaos and pure evil. It's an imperfect system that can sometimes bring good stuff. And nobody's really. I mean, you say we're supposed to submit to it, but it's like if there's something we don't like, usually we're able to talk about it without getting wiped off the map. And if we talk about it, we generate ideas. You know, people agree with us, people disagree with us. Disagreement might lead to more agreement. You know, opposition can be appealing to somebody in the middle sometimes. And ideas get out there. Opposition to the system gets pitched, paid attention to, responded to in some kind of way. It's not. I don't think I fully agree with the picture that you're painting.
They definitely don't like put your head on a pike for being racist. You might be like you might have something legal happen, like a penalty, a fine, basically, because you'll get sued, and then you might suffer social ramifications. But that's not exactly the same thing as legal ramifications.
Well, not in this state. I mean, I guess we're only talking the United States right now.
I don't know if you are an
come with
employee of
jail
the
time.
federal government, you'll 100% lose your job.
It's hate crime.
If
Hate
you
crime
get
in
racist,
some
yeah.
countries, I think, is punishable with jail time. Although I don't know if it's enforced, but I think it's on the books.
Hate speech. You can't make videos with dogs doing Nazi salutes.
Yeah, did that guy actually get jail time? Right?
Yeah, you got jail time.
Yeah, that's whack. It's actually ridiculous.
See, when people can stand against that kind of unfairness. Like people, if somebody makes some racist joke or whatever, or even a genuinely racist comment, but I mean, it's kind of hard to prove that unless they say it, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody does that, like people react in some kind of way. There's support, there's backlash, there's all these different things, and it's like there isn't this silence. There's results, reactions, sometimes something, And if something unfair happens, people are able to try and rectify that. And even if they can't, it's not the end of the world. I mean, life goes on.
So is the argument that somehow the state is a better scenario for change than religious institutions? And that somehow the state is easier moved than religious institutions? Because I would say there have been another number of schisms, departures, and denominations created in the Christian religion that I could point to that have been much
Yeah,
easier.
I'm not saying that one is easier than the other. I mean,
Oh, if I'd call
I,
the
I,
schisms easier though.
I would say that
I think yes, they are.
I would
There's no
say that
middle ground to it.
religion. I think it's kind of a valid point to say that, or at least a true point, that religion is less likely to move on something because a lot of the time, a religion um, is making this absolute claim to something. I mean, and a lot of modern practitioners don't do that as much. Like there are a lot of people who consider themselves Christian, but they don't believe a lot of stuff that's in the Bible. And but as for the church itself and all these different groups, it's like the way people practice it, yeah, that can be, that could be anything. Like somebody says they're a Christian, like who knows what that actually means? Like, but we know what it's supposed to mean. We know what the consistency generally is. There's this book, it says these things. I feel like as a system, there's going to be more of an unwillingness to change or adapt or anything like that. But when it comes to government, because it's made up of all these people, a lot of the time trying to do secular minded things, there's a more willingness to change given the times or whatever might seem appropriate. Like it's not as dogmatic. It can be. I'd say they both equally have a chance to
If
be
you're
dogmatic because, I mean, it's all the same species involved. It's all the same passionate, sometimes emotional, sometimes very reprehensible when they're fighting for something they believe to be true. It's all the same Homo sapiens.
Exactly, and if you look at like the Pope situation, the like anti-LGBTQness didn't go away until the Pope stepped down out of old age, and we got a new one, and then even then, there's been a lot of backlash and all this talk
Yeah.
going on. But then you look at Hillary Clinton and our current president, and like 25 years ago, they were all racist. Pretty much they were all like doing Jim Crow laws and stuff, but now they're bending their knee to the constituency, their voting constituency.
Yeah, so do you think these people have actually had changes of hearts, or is it about the constituency? Is it about numbers?
In this case, I'm more so trying to point out how we're not under the thumb of them. It appears as though that these people are under the thumb of like anti-racist, quote unquote. What am I looking for?
I mean, the two
homogenous group,
examples.
I guess.
The two examples, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. I mean, call me a pessimist, but I feel like those guys are. Well, Joe Biden, he might be just old and crazy, but Hillary Clinton, I feel like that's an evil person. Sorry.
Orthodoxy, that's the word I'm looking for. It seems like they have bent their knee to this new orthodoxy that's come into town.
Yeah, so whether it's genuine or not, which I feel like it's for these two examples, it's probably more likely it isn't. But then again, how would I really know? Doesn't really speak to what kind of people they are deep down. But even if it's not genuine, it's still the act that they're trying to play to appease the people. And by appeasing the people, that's how they get, approval, votes, power. So whether it's genuine or not, I'd say that if it works, the result is the same. don't everybody talk at once?
I mean, I was a little distracted, but I think I agree. Yeah, so we've talked about politics being a religion and having orthodoxy, and I'm sure we could point out examples of that all throughout. But what about, and this might be a hot topic, but what about science? Is there a chance that science is developing religious tendencies?
Oh yeah.
Well,
You know, and I kind of have been alluding to that in a lot of the conversations in the text chat with some people.
But isn't that really just like the application of, as opposed to the thing itself?
Yeah.
No,
Well, there's a difference
what
between.
I'm talking about is a lot of the scientific viewpoints with regards to not physics necessarily, but the scientific viewpoints that prescribe how we ought to live our lives. They take a lot of
sciences?
Like what? Say again?
Like soft sciences?
No, like let's just say how about climate science, for example? That's a hard science.
Yeah.
But it turns into a prescription of how we ought to live our lives. And
Well, it's not even.
when you look at it from that aspect, it's got a lot of the same aspects that religion does. Like try going against the dogma, you know, and see what kind of response you get from people when you're talking about climate science. Even people that are ordinarily skeptical, if you say something about climate science like they don't believe in, then they'll treat you the same way a devout Muslim will treat a Christian that's questioning his faith in Allah.
Yeah. So there's a funny thing that I like to say about this topic, and I'm probably not going to say it as much because it's no longer as relevant to my identity. But it's science is fake. And what I mean by that is not everything we consider scientific can be guaranteed as being scientific, because science is a study that is undertaken by human beings who are capable of mistakes, sometimes even putting in fudge factors. You know, sometimes they're slightly off, sometimes they have to retract, sometimes there's corrections, objections, sometimes it can't be proven, and sometimes there's an agenda involved that could potentially skew the research. And I think that that's the general challenge.
Well, I would argue, and I am the creationist arguing for science. I would argue that science isn't being practiced if things aren't reproducible.
Yeah, I mean, what I mean to say is, I mean, science is fake is a funny slogan to me as a response to the whole science is real self-congratulatory virtue signal. But
yeah, it's like the five
the whole
solas
the whole science the whole science is real, or I trust the science thing. The problem with that is that it's basically implying a straw man that people are saying that science is literally false.
Well, they're also trusting
the disagreement I think is not that science is literally false. That'd be like saying reality is fake. Although of course people don't even the disagreement is this accurate? Can this actually be called science? Or is this just pseudoscience? Is this just a biased political agenda? Like,
but
that's
even
really
the statement itself makes no sense.
Well, yeah, and it's like, it's not something you should just, like, no, I mean, in my opinion, no matter what you believe, you shouldn't put it on a sign and put it in your front lawn. That's just, what are you doing, you know? But I mean,
in California, you'll get people like putting Trump on every window on their house and like 3 signs in their front yard just because they're like "fuck you" to everybody else.
Yeah. It's. I mean, hey, it's like it's their right to do that. But it's I question the motive of like, ooh, I got you guys, you know. Of course, anybody who falls for that, you basically take the bait. Like there are videos of people like stealing signs, and it's like that's so dumb. Like
It's just as bad or worse.
it's just.
It's just like sports.
But
Yeah.
my point is that there is a nuance that I think people need to take, and it's something that more leftist people, I think, generally. Well, I mean, they both do it the wrong way, I guess. But they approach people on the far left, let's say, are more likely to say that a certain type of science is true simply on the grounds that it's considered science, which is not very safe scientifically, because if that's all we ever did, then we'd still be believing a lot of superseded theories and outdated ideas. And then maybe somebody on the far right is more likely to say that, well, this science is it's a total hoax because it makes me have to do or believe in something that I don't want to be true, so therefore it must not be. So that you could take it too far either way. You have to try and look at it objectively and realize that this is reality, and how I feel about it is irrelevant. If it supports whatever I want to be the case, whatever, I should really make sure that I'm not just looking for things that I want to see. And if it goes against it,
well,
you got to accept it as real.
Yeah, and I think well, there's someone talking in the YouTube chat that's like, looks like they're pretty anti-religious and probably anti-Trump. Joshua Smith basically saying that, like, he said a lot of things, and he's saying, like, there's no difference between politics and religion. That's ridiculous. In other words, he's saying, like, religious belief is unreasonable, whereas politics is open discord between facts and reasoning behind representatives. And then he says Trump's the golden calf. Okay, well, first of all, like,
is more reasonable than religion.
I think that's basically what he's saying. And he's also saying that Trump was the golden calf. Like, if you think that there are people that don't worship and idolize other political the same way that people did with Trump and the golden calf, I mean, that's sorely misguided and biased. And the fact that people are using facts and reasoning to bend representatives, like, are we serious? It's all identity politics at this point.
I totally fell for the Trump thing. I got to a point where.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I got to a point where it was like some investigation, one of the like 30 or whatever different investigations they launched on Trump while he was president, and it was like, I remember it was some CNN news whatever, and it was like, oh, Donald Trump probably lied about this, and even like at that point, like even though I heard some evidence that convinced me personally, and I'm sorry, all the details are off, but the point is, I got to a point in my mind where I was like, you know what? I don't even care if he lied. I don't even care if he was being dishonest. Like, he's Donald Trump. He's the guy. He's cool. Like screw all these triggered libs.
If we're honest, and people were honest with themselves, and they said, I'm only going with the politician that is most honest, that doesn't contradict himself, is a nice person, I'd allow to watch my children and my dog.
Then you can't vote for any of them.
For anyone. I mean, I wouldn't let Joe Biden watch my pet parakeet. I mean, come on.
Tulsi Gabbard. Sorry, I just had to mention my idol.
Tulsi's a warmonger, Broseph. What, are you kidding me?
She wanted to get out of the war. That's what she was campaigning
to get out
for.
Of the war, out of the war, only in the just war. Ask her about Israel. I'm sure that's not going to go well. Not to mention the fact that she's largely socialist and would love to take more tax dollars from people because she's been on the tax dole her whole life.
Yeah, she's a lefty. I expect the tax stuff. But
what was that one quote?
I don't know about Israel.
About religion and politics and stream and culture. Something about something.
Politics is downstream from culture.
Is that what it is? I thought religion was,
said that.
Yeah, I thought religion was also in the quote. That was Andrew. That was Andrew Breitbart.
Yeah, he might have said something like the culture is, if it's not religious, then the politics would be bad.
Whatever. Anyway, I understand that all these things are connected on some level, but I feel like we might be getting away from the main question.
Yeah, the question of, well, we were on to science now, and we've kind of ventured back into politics. But we took the route of climate science to get here.
It's all based your top level order that cannot be the whatever the ultimate is in your worldview. That's your religion.
In a general sense, I guess so.
Sure, but the ultimate might be a nebulous term in that scenario, because generally what a more religious person might say is might call ultimate, like a climate scientist or a climate advocate wouldn't call the climate ultimate, but they would say it's like the most important thing in our day-to-day life, and they might call the universe ultimately or something. But I do agree that it's the
moral standard, the moral ultimate.
Yeah, okay, I could get down with that.
Not like your ultimate pursuit of worldview, whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, don't you think that if people identify something and call it the most serious existential threat that faces the world,
yeah,
that kind of puts it in the ultimate category? I mean, there might be
definitely,
something
dude. Come on, yeah.
I mean, like, how is that not in the ultimate category?
It is, because they're making a moral claim.
It's at least apocalyptic, and I'll give you that. Religions, at least in the West, have historically had this apocalyptic jive, at least since like Manichaeanism and stuff like that.
Well, so does politics too, and scientific pursuits. They are very similar. I mean, you notice how every election is always the most important election ever,
mm-hmm.
and how every time the opposition to whoever you might be voting for, every time that they might win, it would always be the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, it'd always end up being the end of the world. Like, oh, Donald Trump can't win. He's such an evil racist, and he's gonna cause nuclear war. And
to people to say, well, this election actually isn't important. Let's all come out on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone wants more.
Never gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
yeah, I mean, you can care about it as it's happening, but it's just they can't all be the most important election ever. Like,
oh, yeah, I was gonna say we should pass the mic around to, like, Villain's here, Jimmy's here, Alpha Wolf hasn't said anything.
Yeah, Alpha Wolf.
Anyone? Bueller?
Bueller. What do you guys think about the nuns? What will they do? You think they'll come back to religion?
I think people who try to be cute about their atheism are obnoxious.
Did you say nuns?
Yeah.
You mean like in Catholicism monasteries?
No, N-O-N-E-S. It's
just like some sort of funny atheist co-opting of the term?
Well, funny is a strong word, but...
You got me.
What will happen to the nuns? Like, what will the nuns do?
Guys, flying spaghetti monster, am I right?
Right. Sky Daddy. Oh my god.
You're so stupid.
That's honestly, I tend to think that's because they've encountered so many people that hold just beliefs we would all call ridiculous.
Well,
right. I mean,
a lot of them probably have bad experiences, and a lot of them feel like it's probably against the grain in some way, because it's weird. I mean, I feel like most people that I know personally, and I'm probably generalizing, but feel like most people I know personally are actually like atheists or agnostic or whatever. But I mean, I guess that could just be where I live.
No, it's actually probably true. Atheism has become a more acceptable tenet since Darwinism, and most people just want to have sex with whoever they want to have sex with, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah. That kind of religious ideas, like those kind of religious ideas that tell people,
was that Jimmy,
what to do on less than a basic level.
I don't think people leave the religion just because they want to do what they want to do. I think people struggle with
No, but I'm sure it plays a part. I mean, that's kind of why I did it.
You want to give like your a synopsis of your recent conversion, Andy? Or
Well, I wouldn't call it a conversion because I wasn't not really converting to anything. I'm more like a reversion. But
I see.
Basically, it's just it's like if you feel like a belief system should be followed all the way, or else what's the point? But you can't find yourself satisfied with that, and you can't even really justify it to yourself entirely on a factual level, which is the other part of it. But sadly, I think a lot of people, myself included, tend to believe things that they want to be true. I mean, and that can take you in all kinds of different directions. And you could argue to some extent that that's what every belief is. I mean, it could be based in reality or not, but the point is you still believe it because you want to. Sometimes. But my thing was that it became difficult and gratuitous. So it got to the point where I seriously didn't see the point anymore. I don't think I could really explain it in any other way that sounds any better.
What side were you arguing for beforehand, just for the people listening?
You mean what? You mean what was my original? Okay, well, so my original ideas about this are the ones that I have now, basically. But the little phase I did in between that I wasn't able to really keep doing because it was awful, and I felt like it was just one big shackle on my heart and soul. That was I really don't. It was fundamentalism, so I was really trying to do it all the way. So I'd kind of rather just leave it at that. I don't want anything I say to affect anybody's. I mean, it probably won't, but affect anybody's opinion on something that they could potentially come to a conclusion about on their own, and not have to take it from somebody like me who's pretty crazy.
It sounds like you went for something almost. It sounds almost like you were like, I might be able to make this work. Or something like that. But I don't know.
I mean, I didn't really have a specific goal in mind, I guess. I just had a set of beliefs and things that I tried to live out, but it became pretty unbearable. And when I was enjoying it, probably because I was lying to myself and denying evidence to the contrary to believe what I believe, and also maybe even a sense of masochism of, well, it's hard, but I deserve it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty
interesting.
Yeah, that's. I know a lot of people in religious situations will, or even like I've met people that were addicts that like have a depression issue, and then they would switch to religion and quit their addiction, and then try to fix their emotional issue with religion.
Well, that's a good reason for why I don't want to.
Yeah, it's usually.
I don't want to call out or make a blanket anything because.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that fundamentalism could even potentially work if that's just your personality, and if it works with you, and it doesn't make you suffer, or the people around you suffer.
No, it depends. It's somewhat anti-biblical. I mean, if somebody's going to be honest, and even Christ says, come to those who are weary and burdened. Right, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If that's not the message of the gospel, then they're not giving people anything but a burden to hang themselves with. And this is my retort to most all evangelical Christians in America. This is a major issue.
I wouldn't want to take. I really wouldn't want to take away anybody's belief system, so to speak, unless, I guess, unless they're open to a debate or something. But I don't want to be one of these guys who are like, well, and I'm not because I'm not an atheist, but who go out and say, "Oh, religion is stupid. It's all dumb. You're dumb for believing it." Maybe I'm making a little bit of a cartoon, but of that line of thinking. But there are people like that.
Yo, Dr. Herbert Bagel.
Yeah, we need some new voices in here.
Dr. A. Bear.
The person that was saying that they don't want to, basically, you're talking about harm somebody else's faith. Do you think that's because you don't really believe what you have come to stand on? Like, what if you're wrong and you hurt somebody with the correct belief?
Yeah, I can be wrong about stuff, totally. That's unavoidable, considering.
I'm not asking if you can be wrong. I'm asking do you think that it's possible that the reason why you don't want to speak too much and harm somebody else's faith is because you're not convinced that you're right?
Not necessarily. Mostly, I want to be nice to people. And that was something that I think I got a better clue of with the faith that I once had. So it's not like I didn't learn anything from it. Yeah, I mean, it's and that's another reason not to just make a blanket criticism, because there are good things you could gather from. I mean, you might say that nothing is unique to any specific religion. Like, they all have a lot of different stuff in common. They just disagree on what it means or how to get there or whatever. But there are lessons you could learn, and there are basic ideas that we all kind of feel are true in a sense, and get explained or in a way that might make sense to people, in a way that might help them better their lives.
So, do you think that there is a place for religious fundamentalism in today's world?
I think popularly, for the most part, no. It's not particularly welcome, I don't think, but that doesn't speak on whether or not it should be, but it's not particularly welcome. I don't think Christian fundamentalism, I think in most of America, and again, I might be speaking within a bubble here, but I think within most of America, it's looked down upon. I mean, gay marriage, that's just one big issue. And yeah, it's like, if you're a Christian fundamentalist, you're seen as a bigot. But it can kind of depend. I mean, Muslim fundamentalism, if you said you were against that, you might be called a bigot, because, it's not considered a white religion. And I got to be honest with you. If Muslim was a majority white religion, I don't feel like a lot of these liberals would be defending it as much as they do. But maybe that's just my racist, bigoted take.
9/11, bro. I think. Are you old enough to even remember that?
I was born on 9/11.
My mom too.
Oh.
Same birthday, but you were born actually in 01?
Yeah, in 01. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's why it's become what it has become.
You're a Virgo. Look at that.
Well, let me clarify the word bigot for you. When a leftist uses the word bigot, it just means somebody who disagrees with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, bigot actually just means idea that you feel is more superior or more correct than another idea.
Seems to be.
It means that a bigot means that you're not willing to accept other people's ideas, right?
Yeah, like it's not
something like that.
I mean, I think people people definitely use it incorrectly, and they throw it around as basically a hominin attack, an ad hominem attack, and just be like, "Oh, well, you said this."
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're getting called a bigot, as an ad hominem attack. That just means that the person disagrees with you. It doesn't mean that you actually are unwilling to accept different viewpoints.
Yeah, or I mean, like willingness to like change your mind. Even that, I wouldn't necessarily consider that a virtue. Like if somebody doesn't think they're going to change their mind, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, that's within a certain level. It's like that's okay. I mean, I can't stop you. I'm not going to force you to agree. But I'm sorry, I totally lost track of what I'm saying. I'm playing a game that I really like right now as I'm talking to you guys.
Shamir's here. What's up, Shamir?
Hey, I'm good.
Hey, what's up?
What?
What's going on? What brings you in?
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I just want to listen to you guys, I guess. Talk about religion and stuff. I don't know.
Cool. Well, do you have a opinion on how religion will fit into today's society and going forward?
No, I'm just like listen to you guys. I don't like an opinion or
That's
anything.
cool.
Enjoy the show.
That's cool.
Yeah,
What about?
I think that. Sorry.
Well, maybe we should go around the room. Does anyone here have a different opinion on religious fundamentalism existing today? Like, is that anyone think that that's good, or we should encourage that, or maybe the exact opposite? We should persecute, not allow people to be fundamentalists.
Well, I wouldn't see
no,
how
there.
not allowing it would be the answer from some force perspective.
Oh
'Cause that
yeah.
would be the same thing on the other side of the aisle.
I mean, also just within America, constitutionally, we couldn't do that.
I mean, yeah. The other thing is like fundamentalism. What does it mean if it doesn't result in something? Like, for instance, if someone is a fundamentalist, meaning they hold to strict interpretation of their faith, that doesn't result in breaking laws or harming others in some other way that seems to break the law of democracy. Well, there's no real concern there unless you're going to start making a claim that like their ideas are dangerous or something, and then you have to put them in jail for their ideas. So that to me, I would think like, that would be a silly pursuit. But hey, Eliyahu's here.
Yeah, I think that considering that we all agree that diversity is a strength,
Right.
it's good to have some religious fundamentalists around.
Yeah, if diversity is a strength, we need a couple Nazis, commies.
Okay, well, I mean,
now you're going a little too far there. I don't know.
Diversity. I mean,
we don't need any of those.
yeah, diversity is not an absolute strength. Diversity, as long as all these people with diverse opinions are also tolerable to be around and not, immoral jerks. Like, yeah, that kind of. But I don't know. Like, I mean, are there chill Nazis?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Probably like a few, but
they don't act out their agenda in a violent manner. They have other methods by which they do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can't. I mean, they gotta try and you catch more flies with honey. So that was Hitler's mistake. He was too grumpy. But anyway,
God damn it.
Sorry.
Hitler was child's play compared to Mao.
I don't know.
I don't think we should start having like a dictator dick measuring contest.
No. Stalin was worse because yeah, I was going somewhere. Oh, right. I just wanted to say that when people say diversity is a strength, it's usually coming from people on the left, and it's usually coming from a position of they're trying to imply that race somehow affects your personality, which, by the way, is racism, and therefore we need a bunch of diversity hires or something like that. Like it's something in that line of thinking.
I mean, that's just that.
That's my interpretation. I could totally be wrong because I know nothing about the real world because I'm only 19.
Andy.
True.
Andy. Shh.
Jimmy,
okay.
you got something to say?
If I keep If I keep talking, are you gonna punish me?
No.
Eventually.
No, I was just gonna say, religious fundamentalism in America basically just amounts anymore to just hurting some people's feelings. So I have
Yeah, but
no problem with fundamentalism as
yeah,
long
when
as.
I was
Go ahead.
no, the feelings. I mean, what you say what you want to say. Like
Yeah.
I'm like free speech is cool, but like if you want to say that evolution is stupid and that being gay is immoral, like that's that's you. Like say it. Don't keep that inside. Like people say it. Oh, why not?
Mm.
Maybe be
I mean,
respectful about it, but I can't
occasionally
force you to.
you'll have the private school that teaches kids that evolution is false, and
Yeah,
luckily these kids will
that.
grow up and find out that it's false.
Yeah, but
Well,
kids have been. Yeah, okay.
I
But I
mean, the
mean,
younger creationists. I mean, one of their slogans
Let's
is
get
"Teach the
Eliyahu in here.
controversy."
He hasn't spoken yet.
Sorry if I'm
I was just
dominating.
gonna. It's okay. I was just gonna say that I kind of disagree with the idea that that religious fundamentalism is just like being offensive. I mean, usually it takes that form, but like, what would you say about a Jehovah's Witness that's going to refuse their child a life-saving blood transfusion?
Well, less kids on the dole. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, why wouldn't what?
Come on now.
Do
Isn't that the
you
way it
have
should
any
work
hard
out?
questions?
Well, I mean, obviously, you're saying like if they're not going to give them life-saving treatment, we have some duty to that child.
That's pretty much the only thing that I can think of. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really
Yeah,
didn't. I really didn't think about that one. I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty
so
wrong.
there is fundamentalism that can take a form of something awful.
I'm cool with it as long as we're consistent. It's like
Yeah,
not
but
killing babies in the womb either, but
but I mean the question becomes like here in America, and I'm just speaking on from what I have at least a basic idea of, separation of church and state. So where's the nuance? If parents are going to do something involving their kids that they get from their religious dogma or maybe even just an interpretation, is the state going to get in trouble for stopping them because they're affecting the well-being of their child? Because is it an either or of, you violate you try to impose the state's authority over a religious practice for the
well, it
sake
seems
of...
to be an argument. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like a case of superseding rights. Whose rights come first? Does the religious freedom come first, or does the right of the child brides at that Mormon ranch in Utah to not be child brides come first? And it seems
I
to
would
be
say that their rights come first, but the issue is there might be some quibble there.
you
there
remove the
might be
state's
some...
monopoly on violence, and then the individuals are allowed to take this out themselves.
I mean, I'm worried about I mean, slippery slope is a logical fallacy, but it's also not an entirely illogical concern.
It's not a logical fallacy. It's not a logical fallacy if you can demonstrate a path by which A, then B, then C happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Well, then I guess it wouldn't be the slippery slope, but...
well, there have been a couple of historical scenarios we can say that there's been overreach as far as how people dictate their households. Depends on whether or not you think they are a big deal. That's the argument.
I would say that it should be illegal to do whatever female circumcision is. That should be illegal. I'm cool with that. I think some people do that, don't they? I don't know. I'm just talking about something I saw on TV one time.
Mutilation? I don't know. Maybe somewhere. I'm sure there are lots of people that do crazy things.
That's definitely a Middle East thing. It's probably not a common...
Why do
it's
people
an African
have that,
thing?
People that always had that strong aversion to female genital mutilation, I don't understand why you're focused on the gender there. If genital mutilation is wrong, why are you focused on female genital mutilation?
You make a good point, Villain. I don't really like circumcision myself either, but I would say that there is a difference in terms of damage.
Because one,
I mean, you could call it mutilation to get rid of a foreskin, but I don't think it would have the same degree of damage, and I think that's that's partially why there
Yeah,
isn't the same
that's
degree of
bullshit.
concern as getting rid of a clitoris or something, or whatever that procedure is.
We're in a way different category, but
Yeah,
no, but I understand.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's some nuance and some reason for why there's more concern for female genital mutilation, I guess. But yeah, I think ideally
there's
people.
actually a valid concern, but people aren't. It's not popular, and it's because women are the weaker sex, and we should protect them. But me, the chauvinist, gets pissed on when I say that.
What's wrong with
Because
getting pissed on?
because honestly, that is why. Why do we say women and children first? Why does it bother us so much when these sorts of things occur? It's because.
But male genital mutilation is children.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I'm talking about why it causes much more of a visceral problem with individuals. Number one, it's not ritualistically accepted. And number two, it's weaker individuals.
Yeah, I mean, allegedly there's a modern surgical reason or medical reason for why people get rid of a foreskin. Although I'm sure that there are cases.
Debatable
I'm sure that there are
now, it's not a
cases.
big deal, but
I'm sure that there are cases against that are coherent. I mean, you're born with it. It's a physical part of your anatomy, and yeah, I kind of find it hard to believe that you definitely have to get rid of it for reasons.
You don't have. The rest of the world doesn't get rid of it. America, and the Muslim world gets rid of it.
It's like,
and the Jews.
well, even if you didn't consider that, it's like you were born with it.
Yeah.
It's a part of.
Do Muslims circumcise?
Yes,
they do. Yeah.
They circumcise, and I think they also are careful with how they shave.
I'm saying in the West, it's pretty much only America. Like Europeans are looking at us and being
Canada,
like,
I don't know. Canada
what are you doing?
Yeah, and it's not for religious reasons, right? Like a lot of people just do it to do it, right?
Well,
but yeah,
it's like they normal,
Yeah, they're thinking to themselves. The mother is strangely thinking to themselves, well, in about 20 years from now, my child is going to engage in a sexual relationship, and his girlfriend / wife is going to be weirded out if there's a foreskin on my son. So to save him the trouble, I'll just get rid of it. But like, if you just stop doing it, if you just got rid of the practice, you would eliminate that stigma.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, if I ever have a kid, I'm not doing that because why would I? Like,
I'm a Christian and we didn't do that.
Well, it's not mandated for Christians, is it?
Well,
I think there's some debate on that, but I personally don't.
Is there an understanding of why that's done in the Jewish world? Because usually it's not just usually people that follow the faith, they don't just say just because God said it. They have like an argument of why it's valuable.
Yeah, but
it defies the covenant between Abraham and God.
Yeah, it was like if you really want to prove yourself to me, if you want to show me that you're really
or something like,
if you really want to show me that you're one of my chosen,
you guys are making the argument from like ignorance from religious fundamentalism, as though these people are just. It's basically like God said so I'm doing it. But most people that I've talked to that have like deep Jewish faith, they actually have reasons for a lot of this stuff. Like the reason why they have kosher diets. They're not saying it's because God said it. They'll like, and I'm not saying that their argument is true or correct or not, but it's not just like because God said it. They'll argue study after study after study that shows the health benefits and the immune benefits of the kosher diet.
Yeah.
Well, what greater sacrifice could you provide to God that still will allow you to reproduce than removing part of your penis? Like you're not going to cut off the whole. You're not going to cut off the whole thing because then there's not going to be any more Jews. But you cut off part of it, and actually, I believe the Rambam. What was his Maimonides? Rambam is his other name. Is a famous Jewish philosopher in antiquity who, not antiquity, but like 1,000 years ago, who wrote about something about it's designed to suppress the enjoyment of the orgasm.
Yeah, because that's cool.
That's what it's there to do. I don't know what the deeper purpose of that would be.
Well, sex isn't supposed to be fun. If it is, you're doing it wrong.
What? Who said that?
It is to make babies and nothing else, you sick perverts.
Oh, okay. Why is that exactly?
Am I really that bad at sarcasm?
I mean, oh, I see. You're like making some sort of straw man of the fundamentalists, whereas
Yeah.
they like to
I mean,
ignore
there's
all of
some.
Proverbs. They like to ignore all of the Song of Solomon. They like to ignore Corinthians. Like, people the cherry pickers, or Romans.
Yeah.
This is
No,
this
yeah,
is the cherry
sex. I
pickers,
think
man.
you could make a biblical case for why, within the Christian worldview and the Jewish worldview, it's okay to have sex for pleasure.
Okay, I'm
You
quoting
could,
from Maimonides here, where in
or at
regards
least
to
it's okay to
circumcision.
enjoy it at least.
Yeah,
I want to hear this.
one of the world's leading Jewish philosophers. He lived in this is written around the year like 1170. He says, with regard to circumcision, one of the reasons for it is, in my opinion, the wish to bring about a decrease in sexual intercourse and a weakening of the organ in question, so that this activity be diminished and the organ be in as quiet a state as possible. It has been thought that circumcision perfects what is defective congenitally. This gave the possibility to everyone to raise an objection and say, how can natural things be defective so that they need to be perfected from the outside? All the more because we know how useful the foreskin is for that member. In fact, this commandment has not been prescribed with a view to perfecting what is defective congenitally, but to perfecting what is defective morally. The bodily pain caused to that member is the real purpose of circumcision. None of the activities necessary for the preservation of the individual is harmed thereby, nor is procreation rendered impossible, but violent concupiscence and lust that goes beyond what is needed are diminished. So yeah, so it's to diminish the quality of the sex.
Yeah, which I feel like is a cool idea if you're dealing with ancient times when rape is everywhere and there's all these immoral issues that are going on. But I think we need it less and less as society kind of crimps those out of existence, I guess, because we're having less and less psychopaths and violent people.
I mean, maybe Bruce will correct me on this, but it doesn't really seem like the Bible ever explicitly says that rape is wrong.
Yeah, it does actually.
He then gives one other reason here. He says,
all over.
For if at birth this member has been made to bleed and has had its covering taken away from it, it must indubitably be weakened. The sages, may their memory be blessed, have explicitly stated, it is hard for a woman with whom an uncircumcised man has had sexual intercourse to separate from him. In my opinion, this is the strongest of the reasons for circumcision. I don't know why that is. It's when a woman has sex with an uncircumcised wait, what? Oh. If a woman has sex with an uncircumcised man, she just is like more attached to him. She's like, no, I need the uncircumcised D. Like, what is that?
There's a reason why this tenant didn't. There's a reason why this sort of tenant didn't exactly take hold as far as reasoning.
I don't know, man. Maimonides is pretty big.
I mean, fundamentally, rape is sexual immorality all the way across the board, which is largely discussed in the New Testament as well. So if anyone wants to make that claim, they're cherry picking once again around because they don't like Christians and they like to find gotchas.
Yeah, well, I mean, it says here. Oh, I see what he's getting at. According to this other thing here, it says, based on anecdotal reports, a survey was developed to determine the effect of male circumcision on a woman's ability to achieve a vaginal orgasm. And I guess at the time they thought that it was easier for an uncircumcised man to give a woman an orgasm. So, like, if a woman has sex with an uncircumcised man, then she can't separate from him. She's just going to need him too much.
Well, there's probably a little bit of truth to that physically.
All of these poor circumcised Jews just couldn't get their ladies off and didn't know why, so they just blamed it on
It might have been. It might have actually been. Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah, man, it's
More
a
of an
struggle
attack on the
every day.
pagan, or the non-circumcised generally. Like, let's just make them, be bad in some way. How can we do that? Oh, we'll just say this.
So it's marketing.
Genius.
Well, I don't know if it's genius, but it's something.
No, it's total tactical brilliance.
Oh yeah, it's right in the art of war.
Oh yeah, I couldn't have thought of a better strategy.
Yeah. So what's the
pirate I've ever seen.
what's the tally? Circumcision in modern society, yay or nay? I'd probably say yay or nay. I mean, almost said yay.
I don't know. I mean, there only recently have I learned that there's so much of a debate on it. But I say for the most part, people are okay with it. They're skeptical of why it happens, but I think that most people are just like, yeah, whatever.
You know, it's weird. I
Yeah,
don't know
they
if you
don't-
guys have had this
they don't think
experience,
about
but
it.
when
Yeah.
I've got friends or family that are having a newborn for the first time, and I'll just broach the topic. I'm like, hey, are you going to circumcise them? And they'll
Why are you
pretty
interested
quick
in
that
penis so much?
pretty quickly that gets into like an uncomfortable conversation. It's like there's a lot of emotion. They get mad about it. Like you're not supposed to talk about it and question it. And I'll ask them why they're doing it, and they don't have an answer, and they get mad, and they don't even want to discuss it. Like it's strange how much anger and emotions wrapped up around that. That's been my experience, and several people that have had a newborn, a new child for the first time, and it's a boy, and it's just like there's anger at even the broaching of just talking about the topic.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Does anybody else experience that, or is that just me?
It's weird to talk about it, but not weird to do it. I guess.
Yeah.
I am not in favor of circumcision. I'd say it doesn't.
Thank you for
If
being
I
an
had a kid,
ally.
I would not circumcise them. But I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, I don't have a preference really when it comes to sex. I don't think it really matters as much as people make it out to.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I would usually hear is that like literally it's women judging penises they've seen and being like, I like this type more. I like circumcised or I like uncircumcised more, and then they'll go with that. And then guys with the circumcised dick tend to be proud of it, so they're just like, yeah, I don't want my kid to have a fucked up dick. And then that's the same thing in reverse.
What's
I
the other way.
disagree. I feel like I was robbed.
There is more.
I was robbed of my flesh hood.
There's a practical issue as a guy that circumcised that had children that did not circumcise. Like, I can't necessarily tell them from experience how to maintain it properly without asking the doctor or other people or researching it myself. So I have to be like, I've got to be on the ball in like doing my research and how to make sure that like all of the workings with the foreskin is clean and.
Yeah, you really got to be on the ball there.
Yeah, right. No,
actually, you have to be on the tip. Actually,
you're a little south. You're a little south.
So like, it's not just
you got to be on the you got to be on the knife edge.
Yeah, it's also like you have to be. It's a thing you'll have to teach them that you don't necessarily have any experience.
You need
with.
cutting edge logic.
That's another reason why people might just opt to do it because it's what they know.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely. It's just familiar.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. I know when I see a circumcised dick, there is a sense of security.
How often do you see circumcised dicks?
That is my business.
Every time I tie my shoes in the morning.
The first time I ever saw an uncircumcised dick, it was very, very, very disturbing to me. I was in military school when we were in the showers, and there was a guy with a very, very small penis, and it was uncircumcised. And I actually, like, when you're a teenager in that situation, you're trying not to look, but you're in the showers and you look. And I actually shouted out in like concern. I was like, ah! And then by the time I had halfway through my shout, I had realized what I was seeing, and I thought that it was a damaged penis because it's flat on the end. I thought the head was chopped off, and then but it was just a very small uncircumcised penis. That was a very awkward moment.
And why in porn it's usually all circumcised?
Horse cock.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell when it's erect sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because when it's erect, like you're exposing the glands.
Yeah.
Glands.
Yikes.
Yeah, but actually, I was watching some adult films recently, and Bruce, I ain't married when I ain't got kids, so but anyway,
illegal prostitution going.
But the what I've noticed recently, if I'm paying attention, that the penis in the video a lot of times is like the head of the penis, or like the top half of it, is a different shade than the bottom half, which makes me think that it's like the top half is like a prop, like, or it's like they're putting something over the penis to make it look larger than it is. And I'm like, nobody's penis is like one shade of skin color, like for halfway, and then halfway it just changes and becomes like a different skin tone.
Kind of.
Dog's penis.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that the tip has to be the same color as the shaft?
It's not. No, I'm saying it stops halfway through the shaft. It changes like to a different
that's
color.
The difference in circumcision. Wait, do you have a very small penis, Bobby?
No, I don't have a very small penis.
Depending
on how much foreskin is taken
of the ocean.
Like there's that's.
But I had 3/4 of my dick chopped off, when I was born.
What you're seeing is like, you should be seeing the difference between the skin that was removed and the skin that remains, and then where the joint is, and that, depending on like someone with a really very well endowed individual, that would be more prominent. And so in porn, you're actually going to see a lot more endowed individuals.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to. Post the clip here. But if anyone's curious, I can send you the video that I'm talking about. If anyone in private wants to actually see this, because I am like, okay, I need independent verification. Can somebody look at this video and tell me that there is no way that this guy's penis actually looks like that, where it's like, a certain shape?
We'll get to the bottom of this. We'll all meet up. We'll have a council. We'll all figure out, is this a real dick?
I've seen that not just in, like, I've seen that in, in person. Like, it's not just in a video. It's like that does occur. I don't know exactly why. I think it does have something to do with circumcision, but
the guy that Eliyahu is talking about.
What's that?
On South Park, they said circumcision makes your dick look bigger. But I don't know how that could be the case if you're getting rid of something.
Well, if South Park said it.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. They're usually such a good authority.
It depends on who cuts it, right? If you get the feng shui in there. Okay.
Feng shui.
I don't know. It sounded like a good dick term. To bring this dick colorization conversation full circle.
Aren't we talking about religion or something?
Yeah. Do you think that the religiosity that men today show towards their genitalia will survive in the future?
As long as we got them.
Yeah, until we observe International Castration Day, which that online feminist was advocating for. Then we're
God.
I think as long as guys have two heads, it'll always be a struggle on which one to think with.
Well, who do you like in 1,000 years? Do you think there will still be this large population of males that are measuring their dicks and comparing them with whatever they see on the internet or whatever?
I find it amazing how little a lot of this stuff has changed. When you read like Oedipus and you read like these ancient Greek plays, it's like they're talking about the same types of things they're just as sex obsessed as we are, you know.
Yeah, maybe it would take a million years. Different anatomy, being in a different universe and having a different history.
I think guys will always just be obsessed with their dicks.
So the one religiousness that will definitely stay, even if we get rid of politics and actual religion, it would be dick sizes, and
Motion
that's a little
carried.
depressing. Well, that's cool.
Are
So,
most of the people in here religious? It sounds like there's a higher percentage in this conversation than normal. Typically.
I don't know. I mean, sing out, you heroes.
I'm agnostic.
Are you religious, Andy?
Well, it depends on what you mean by religion.
Do you worship your penis?
I don't work for. I work with. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't think I would call myself religious. I mean, I don't think I'd say spiritual either. But
You said you
believe
were not an atheist, right?
I'm not an atheist. If that makes me religious, then I guess I'm religious. But I'm definitely not an atheist. Well, I mean, I don't fucking know. I think that there's probably a God. I'm not an atheist. I don't think I'm an atheist.
You said you don't work for, you work with.
I think he's talking about his penis.
Yeah, it's an equal partnership.
Yeah,
we respect and cherish one another.
I don't know what to say with that.
Yeah. I'm somewhat religious. I'm a perennialist, so I think every religion is talking about something that's true. I don't normally use terms like God or religious, but I will if it communicates my point better. But
right.
So I'm kind of in a weird middle zone. Although
You're not atheist now?
I tend to say that I'm both atheist and theist because I can call something God, and I can believe that the name God truly applies to that thing more so than most other things. And I think that it is what other people mean when, like, religions mean when they're talking about God. But I'm atheistic in the sense I don't see a need for the word God or any sort of I don't think I need to set aside every Sunday to go to a specific building to say a specific chant over some crackers or anything.
So, if you were to define God, how would you do that?
Well, I tend to think God is it's kind of like, philosophically, I would say it's the initiator of consciousness. So it's kind of akin to objective reality if you're coming at it from an atheist standpoint. It's the thing from which all of our concepts and everything we interact with springs. And thus morality and all that.
That makes sense. Sorry, I have to go. I'll be back in like 30 minutes, though.
NP.
Thank you, guys.
We'll all probably be
always
here.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be in and out.
Man, can't get away from this sex talk in and out.
In and out, yeah, right. We're talking about religion, so we gotta broach, dick sizes and politics. They're all the same.
Yeah, right. It's all the same. Well, I don't know. I think a lot of it is there's a lot of holy war. I think is thinly veiled, just like war for a person to prove how much of a man he is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think even religious wars have been that sometimes. It becomes a disagreement between two heads of orthodoxy rather than the systems that they follow.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, so if I was looking up, so if you look up on Wikipedia, if you look up religious war, it says that 6.98%, 123 out of 1,763 wars have been religious wars. which seems like a pretty small. But then even people say, well, no, the real reason for those religious wars, if we go through them one by one, wasn't really religion. Like it's very rare, or that a king or a monarch says that we need to go and kill those other people because of what they believe. It's more so we need to kill them for what they believe. And conveniently, we're going to take all the cattle and all the women and all the resources with them when we do that. So I always feel like this kind of religious justification is just kind of like a thinly veiled way of, being able to do whatever you want. Like you're telling your flock, you're telling your population that we can go and take over whatever country we want. And by the way, God's telling us it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look up the Crusades and stuff like that, the history of it is very much like they needed to fight this invading army, and so they made this army, the Crusaders, basically. And then after that battle was over, they just had all of these mercenaries that they needed to pay, and the only way they knew how to pay them was to send them off to war to fight and steal stuff from Constantinople or wherever. And so that's what they did. They would just send their armies to go war and pillage so that they'd have something to do, so they wouldn't war and pillage where they were at. But
yeah, let's see. The Great, I've never heard of this book until just now. The Great Big Book of Horrible Things gives religion as the primary cause of 11 of the 100 worst atrocities in history.
It really depends on how you define religion, because we were talking about that earlier, and it's like if you define it as like the justification for your morality, then there might be more religious wars than we're thinking of. But
yeah, well, it depends also on what do you mean by the cause. So like, why were the powers that be waging this war? It's like in ISIS, right? Like if in ISIS, the leaders are conveniently not the people who are going and blowing themselves up. They're the ones that are going to get the palaces and women brought to them who are like slowly dropping vines of grapes into their mouth, while they lie naked on their bed of gold. But so they have various other motivations for why they are waging this war on this terrorism. But the foot soldiers probably do really believe in the religion. Like the people who are actually doing it are doing it for a religious reason.
Yeah.
So when you're saying like, is ISIS a religious cause? Like, well, maybe it is for the people who are actually blowing themselves up, but I don't know how religious it is for the leaders. Like they have their own motivations.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they did, and I tend to think a lot of specific people probably did. But I'm sure there's a leader here or there that is considering blowing himself up or something. I don't know. It's hard. I tend to think that there is a place for religion in the future. It just would have to come from recognizing that the religions aren't necessarily in conflict with one another. And I think it would take to get religions to be cohesive and stuff is to just like the treatment of people, I think has to be like people all across the board have to be seen as able to have the same general basic rights, or I think we kind of start having cultural conflicts that become difficult. And like pretty much if you're making it mandatory to wear a burqa for women, I think that's probably going to cause conflict at some level, even if we push it under the rug for now and try to pretend like it's not happening.
You mean like make it mandatory for every human being to wear a mask at all times and cover their face? Like, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think if you go or like making every human wear a mask is not discriminatory, actually, but making half the population specifically wear a mask, or making unvaccinated people unable to travel, I think that's when you start getting in trouble.
Yo.
Is he breaking up for anyone else?
Can you hear me? 1, 2.
Am
I
I
can
breaking
hear
up?
you. I
No,
can hear you, and I
me,
can
Dal.
see you.
Dal, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Trav, I can hear you, and I can see you, and I just gotta say,
Oh, my Lord.
Loud.
Oh, my
Oh
loud.
my loud.
Well, how's the
Yeah,
conversation going, Dal? Have you solved it all? Do you have the answer?
we've reached a utopian society.
Good.
We've agreed that circumcision is probably not the best. We talked about how most of this conflict we're discussing with religion is dick measuring contests.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Politics is in danger of having religious movements, even atheistic, science-based religious movements happen. That was pretty much all we hit.
Atheistic science-based religions. Ooh, ah, ee, ooh.
Ooh, ee, ooh, ting, tang, what a bing bang.
Yikes. Well,
Yeah. What do you think, Pangburn? Do you think the religions can exist in the modern times and into the future?
yeah, if people don't use religions as an excuse to act antithetically towards other people's well-being, then I think things can get along just fine. People can have their religions if they want to have them. I don't buy into this idea that we shouldn't define religion so loosely that it means like a sports fan. I make the joke, and I'm being hyperbolic when I say the most religious I ever get is when talking about my favorite hockey team, the Vancouver Canucks, because I will say absurd shit like, "This is the year, man. This is it, the Stanley Cup," and there's no good reason to believe that, and I really don't believe it. I know I'm engaging in fantasy. But the difference with religion is religions are tend to be attached to, these kind of faith-based beliefs in certain things, like an objective moral standard, a handed down objective moral rule from a deity that supposedly exists, so long as you just accept that it exists. So I think it, people can be religious about things or come up with their own religions or write new religions, but the law of the land should trump those religions. And the law of the land I think the way democracies handle the law of the land is correct. You want to get collective moral standards, moral foundations, raising their voices and engaging in debate and argument about what the best laws are and what laws should be upgraded or what laws should be downgraded. And I think that's probably the best process we have so far. But yeah, my only moral objection would be from a well-being standpoint, right? So I want people to do things that bring them the most pleasure, and if that's believing in Jesus Christ and following the tenets of the Bible, then right on, so long as you're not harming the well-being of yourself or those around you. And I mean that in a from an objective, scientific, medical standard, and that includes, one's psychology.
Yeah, and I would think enough like economic baggage and stuff like that would probably fall in, like if you're Scientology where you have to pay $5,000 per level.
Yeah, but I mean, like people, if people want to pay the $5,000, that makes them feel cool and part of something. You know, it's funny. People who have too much money to spend seem to get attracted to Scientology just so they can say they bought the books. I think. I'm being facetious, but
I think a lot of what you said, Trav, was basically correct.
Yeah, and it pretty much pertains to what I was saying about burqas. I think that they're probably the lowest level of infringement that's unnecessary, and then enforcing travel-based laws depending on certain things might not be good.
Yeah, me personally,
I have a problem with enforced burqas. But if a woman wants to wear a burqa because she finds it pleasurable because it's part of her belief structure that she enjoys, I think she should be free to do that so long as she's not breaking the law of the land. And for example, if she goes to an airport and they say, we need to see who you are, and they say, no, it's against my religious belief to take off. Sorry, that the law of the land now is coming in to trump your religious belief. Also with children, no, my child cannot receive a blood transfusion after this terrible car accident because, you know, whatever, woo-woo, God, whatever. No, sorry, law of the land says... Yeah, and I want to see
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's just another silly point from the yuppie of the group, but I just wanted to mention that. Me personally, I think women are attractive when they wear burqas. They shouldn't be forced to wear them, of course, but for some reason, it's attractive to me. I think it's the modesty of it.
I mean, I guess I can kind of see where you're coming from, but I don't find it attractive. But I see what you mean, at least.
I don't share that attraction.
I like Arabian girls, and maybe
that's
like really awesome eyes or something. They have like green eyes.
I think,
or just really intense brown eyes.
I think what Dal-tsu is explaining right now is Jasmine from Aladdin, 100%.
Heck yeah,
Oh yeah.
You've been indoctrinated by Disney.
The hottest Arab woman, a cartoon. Thank you. Yeah.
No, there's beautiful women in all necks of the world, all parts of the world.
Yeah, of course.
Not the Sandwich Islands. Definitely not on the Sandwich Islands.
Even the kind that have extra long necks because they're wearing rings around them.
All of you guys listening on the Sandwich Islands, fuck you.
Cock meat Sandwich Islands?
What the fuck?
What is the Sandwich Island, by the way?
I don't know what your problem is. I think a talking sandwich woman would be pretty sexy.
It's just a group of islands in the Pacific somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense.
Sounds made up.
It is made up.
I mean, aren't all names made up?
No. These islands,
Travis,
they're
is
fake.
your name even really Travis, or are you just human?
Fake and gay.
Well, according to this one woman I called one time, and I was like, "Hi, this is Travis Pangburn calling for so and so," and she says, "Oh, okay, thanks, Trevor." Everyone, I say Travis, people say back.
Dude, I've honestly thought about calling you Trevor a couple times. Not recently, but like back when I first met you.
The best one I've ever been called in an email is Teavis. Teavis. That was the best thing I've ever seen. Like it was like, and it wasn't like a casual email, like a quick one. It was like a pretty robust email, like a long email with details about
like 12 times.
It was a dude.
I'm very concerned recently
about
was like,
your. Thank you so much for getting back to me. Thank you so much for getting back to me, Teavis.
Teavis.
I wonder how many times they called you Teavis in that whole email.
No, it was just the one. It was just right off the start. There was no thanks. There was no thanks, Teavis, at the end or anything. But
Teavis and
well, I mean, that would be a basic typo, right? I mean,
exactly. That's what I thought of. Teavis and Butthead. Maybe I really am Teavis.
Have you been called T-Bone before?
What's that?
T-Bone.
What's up, T-Bone?
T-Bone? No one's called me T-Bone.
Hey, T-Bone.
Oh, there was that one girl.
Instead they called you Coco.
T-Bone, no. T-Pang. I've been called T-Pain. I've been called.
I tried to.
All right,
My buddies from when
I really like T-Pang.
My
That's
buddies
good.
from
pretty
when I was
good, yeah.
young. All my buddies from where I grew up call me Travie.
Travie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna start calling
Travie the
him
Scabby.
Or Travie P. Yeah.
Travie P.
Travie P. My enemies call me toilet paper because my initials are TP.
Paying up in the Trav house.
That's good.
Anyways, I was thinking, Dal, it's time to head down to the Tav because I have an amber ale in my hand.
Let's all drink virtually together.
All right, guys, let's drop down to the Tav. Dal-tsu, again, a pleasure listening. Thank you to everyone who engaged.
Whoever might be watching this, you've been a lovely audience. Thank you.
I knew that it was impossible for me to get the last word with Andy in the room.
No.
This has been a victory for Eve.